Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I will call the Board of Examiners meeting to order. Can you hear us loud and clear in Las Vegas?
Yes, Governor.
All right. The second item on the agenda is public comment. I always laugh to myself when I have these meetings because it reminds me of law school. Nobody's willing to sit in the front row in fear of being called on. But in any event, is there anyone present in Carson City that would like to provide public comment to the board? I hear and see none. Is there any public comment from Las Vegas?
No, Governor.
All right, no public comment from Las Vegas. We'll move to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the April 11, 2017 minutes. Have the members had an opportunity to review the minutes, and are there any changes?
No changes. Move for approval.
The Secretary of State has moved to approve the April 11, 2017 minutes. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by the Attorney General. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, state vehicle purchases. Mr. Wells, good morning.
Good morning, Governor. Agenda item 5 includes a request for 5 vehicles. The first is a request from the Commission on Peace Officers Standards and Training to replace one used vehicle that has met the age and mileage replacement thresholds with a used NHP vehicle. This vehicle was included in the agency's legislatively approved budget. The second item is a request from the Department of Administration Public Works Division to replace 2 vehicles that have met the age and mileage replacement thresholds with 2 used NHP trucks. These vehicles were also included in the agency's legislatively approved budget. And the third item is a request from Fleet Services to replace 2 vehicles which were totaled in accidents. The funds for these vehicles are coming from accident recovery and agency reserves. If this item is approved, a work program will be processed to take funds out of the reserves for the agency, and there are sufficient reserves in Fleet Services to cover this request. And there are representatives available from the departments to answer any questions board members may have.
Any questions from board members? Post got a great deal, $13.25 for a vehicle. That's a good one. Yeah. As you can see, I'm a little chip flippant today, so thank you. I'm in a good mood. All right, any questions or discussion from board members? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the state vehicle purchases described in agenda item number 4?
Move to approve.
Attorney General has moved for approval. Secretary of State is seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, which are authorizations to contract with a current and/or former employee. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. Item 5 includes 3 requests to contract with current and/or former employees pursuant to NRS 333.705, subsection 1. The first request is from State Purchasing, who contracts with Allied Universal Security Services through a master services agreement to provide uniformed security guards to various state agencies. This request is for Allied Universal to use a former employee who left state service in February of 2017 to perform these services. And Allied Universal also uses these employees on other contracted jobs with non-state of Nevada employers. The second request is from the Department of Public Safety, Office of Traffic Safety, to contract with 3 current state employees, 2 from the Gaming Control Board and 1 from the Nevada Highway Patrol, to provide certified motorcycle safety instructor training services. These activities require special certification for the individuals performing them and are conducted primarily on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is outside of the normal working schedule for the employees, or the employees will take appropriate leave. And the third request is from the Department of Public Safety General Services Division to allow a current employee to resign and take a position with the State Record Management Computer Aided Dispatch System vendor. If this item is approved, the employee will terminate employment and become an account manager for Spillman Technologies, which is the vendor used by the division, and be assigned to as the contract liaison between the Department of Public Safety and Spillman Technologies. The agency stated that the previous account manager was reassigned to a different project, and the vendor has been unable to find a replacement to the department's satisfaction. The agency has also indicated they will be able to hire and train the employee's replacement. This employee will not be retiring, nor will the employee be collecting a pension at this time, and they also had no influence on or authority over the procurement process for this particular vendor. And there are representatives available to answer any questions the board members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wells, and perhaps you can answer this question. Do you know what the rate of pay is with the private vendor?
I do not know what the rate of pay is for the contracted employee.
Is there someone here from DPS that can respond to that question?
Good morning. Patrick Conway, Division Chief for Investigation Division, Department of Public Safety. Governor, in response, I do not have that information. I believe that is going to be a negotiation that the employee and the vendor will go through should this be approved. But I haven't been provided with information.
And we haven't really seen one like this where somebody's directly recruited out of a state position to do the same or have the same responsibilities while they were with the state. So will you hire to replace the vacancy that's in the state?
Yes, and if I can clarify, the duties will not be precisely the same. So the vendor, the contract requires the vendor to provide the state with a account manager or somebody who's going to interact from the vendor to the state and provide a variety of services, including technical services. The contract also requires the state as the customer to provide liaison people who do some similar things, but not the exact things that the vendor's representative does. We need that vendor representative because they have access to all of their systems and technical capabilities, and that's what that person does. The state people kind of keep the state organized as with regard to operation of the system. So I'm not going to say none of it's the same, but it is not the same.
And you're in full support of this happening?
Yes, and we did in fact try to do it another way for the last 9-10 months, and service levels fell off so much that we felt it put the whole thing at risk.
Okay, thank you. Really appreciate that. Any other questions from board members? Thank you, sir. If there are no further questions, the chair will accept a motion to approve the authorizations to contract with a current and/or former employee as described in agenda item number 5.
Move to approve.
Attorney General has moved for approval. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Hear none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is a authorization to approve a provider agreement. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. Item 6 is a request from the Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Welfare and Supportive Services for the board to approve a new provider agreement for domestic violence and substance abuse. This new agreement provides services to temporary assistance for needy families eligible participants on behalf of the division. The agreement is for the provision of services, not for the provision of services to the state, but rather services to the TANF participants. And there are representatives available from the division to answer any questions the board members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. And again, this is routine in terms of expediting approval of these types of contracts and ensuring that the citizens or the individuals that are the beneficiaries of that treatment get it sooner for those services. Any questions from board members?
Move to approve.
Okay, the Attorney General has moved to approve the authorization for the provider agreement presented in agenda item number 6. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. 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 That motion passes 3-0. Move on to agenda item number 7, request for retroactive approval of a specific travel policy. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. Pursuant to subsection 6 of NRS 281.160, the Gaming Control Board seeks approval from the Board of Examiners to adopt a travel reimbursement policy that is less than the U.S. General Services Administration rates for enforcement agents who are attending a law enforcement academy that requires participants to reside at the academy or in academy housing but does not provide meals. The board is requesting to pay a reduced rate as adopted by the Gaming Control Board, which is currently set for $26 per day, for meals to enforcement division agents attending the Nevada Post Academy. The new policy is in response to a change in post policy whereby meals are not provided to participants whose agencies do not contribute to court assessment fees, which are the primary source of funding for the Post Academy. The policy proposed by Gaming Control Board also requests a waiver to the 50-mile rule to provide a meal allowance for those employees who are required to reside at the academy housing during the training. And finally, the Gaming Control Board has requested the new policy be retroactive to January 23rd of 2017. NRS 281-160 is silent as to allowing agency-specific travel policy to be retroactive. The state administrative manual provides that lesser reimbursement rates may not be adopted until approved by the Board of Examiners, and that's in section 204 of the state administrative manual. SAM is silent as to the travel policy relating to the 50-mile rule and whether or not those changes can be retroactive. In general, I believe that this is a fair policy for Gaming Control Board employees, but wanted to make sure that the board members were aware of the current language in SAM regarding the timing of proposed changes by the agency. However, since SAM is issued under the authority of the Board of Examiners, I believe that the board has the authority to make exceptions to the policies that are outlined in it. And there are representatives available from the Gaming Control Board to answer any questions members may have.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Any questions from board members? Great explanation, Mr. Wells. We're straightforward. Answered all my questions. So if there are no questions, the chair will accept a motion to approve the request for retroactive approval of a specific travel policy as presented in agenda item number 7.
Move to approve.
Attorney General has moved for approval. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move to agenda item number 8, which is a travel policy change request by the Division of Minerals. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. Again, pursuant to subsection 6 of NRS 281.160, the Division of Minerals is seeking approval from the Board of Examiners to update their travel reimbursement policy to include travel reimbursement rates that are less than the U.S. General Services Administration rates used generally for state employees. The policy requests that for those employees who work in the field for several days or weeks at a time, that a camping gear reimbursement allowance be provided to cover personally owned gear, camping equipment such as sleeping bags, etc., used for overnight camping, as well as any campground fees paid by the traveler. The requested rate is $40 per night for all gear and campground fees, and is a flat rate for any location in the state. Meals would continue to be reimbursed at the GSA standard non-survey rates for employees who are in camp status. And there are representatives available from the agency to answer any questions.
Any questions from board members? Sounds kind of fun, doesn't it? Camping sounds pretty good right about now. If there are no questions, the chair will accept a motion to approve the travel policy change request is presented in agenda item number 8. The Secretary of State has moved for approval. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by the Attorney General. Any questions or discussion on the motion? I hear none. All in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. Let's move to agenda item number 9, leases.
Thank you, Governor. There are 9 leases in the a packet for approval by the board this morning. Lease number 9 between the Department of Health and Human Services Division of Public and Behavioral Health and MPZ Rentals LLC has been withdrawn. No additional information has been requested by any of the members.
Okay, Mr. Wells, I did have a question. It's on lease 7 with the HHS. And the question is this one is, it's a 10-year lease with a 3% increase every single year, which obviously is a pretty dramatic increase for each year. And typically that is, the companion of that is some TIs, tenant improvements that come along with it. And it does say that we're getting better carpet squares and some paint damaged walls, but is that the best we can do? I don't know if there's someone here from purchasing.
Good morning. It's Leanne Lima with Leasing Services. This lease was negotiated on the same rates of the existing lease that was also a 10-year. The only difference is this does have the tenant improvements. The carpet and the paint are tenant-specific as requested by them. And then also to cover the increase of the utilities for that the lessor also pays.
Okay. No, and I'm going to vote for this, but it just, this one seems like a lot more than what we typically see. And I mean, you do this every day, and it's a pretty good deal for the landlord, the 3%, because not only are they getting that 3% increase, they have the best tenant in the state because they're going to get paid every month.
They do. It also is doing the weighted average. It's only 30 cents over the 10-year period of the increase, which is still less than the current market rate.
Well, just make sure you order Berber carpet or something and get the best carpet you can get. All right, thank you. All right, board members, any other questions with regard to the leases in agenda item number 9?
Move to approve agenda item number 9.
The Attorney General has moved to approve the leases presented in agenda item number 9. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State.
Lease number 9 was withdrawn.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. So that would be leases 1 through 8, Mr. Attorney General?
Yes.
Okay.
Move to approve lease agenda item number 9, leases 1 through 8.
Thank you. You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to contracts. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. There are 68 contracts in agenda item number 10 this morning for approval by the board, and members have requested additional information on contract number 68 between the Department of Employment, Training, and Rehabilitation, Vocational Rehabilitation Division, and the Washoe County School District.
And that sound you heard was the collective sigh of relief for 1 through 67, right? So, and I asked for 68 just because I'm very curious about this voice program, so.
Thank you, Governor. Shelley Hendren from the Rehab Division, and also have Kelly Wales with me from Washoe County School District. Briefly, this program is a third-party cooperative arrangement. Our federal oversight agency allows us to enter into contracts with other government entities, and therefore they can put up the match to draw down our federal funds. So we have federal funds that are relinquished each year, and these programs are able to tap into those to bring more money into the state. So this particular third-party cooperative is with Washoe County School District, and we serve joint consumers that are students with disabilities up to age 22. And it's all vocational preparation as well as vocational placement assessments and placements for these students. And we are happy to go into more detail on the services if you're interested, or the fiscal piece, or whatever your preference is.
No, thank you. And as I said, it sounds like a fabulous program. Do you know how many individuals it will serve?
Yes, thank you. So we ran some data from its inception, which it started in fiscal year 14. To date, they have served 192 unique individuals. Some of those carry over from fiscal year to fiscal year, so those numbers would be inflated if you look at each year specifically. But 192, and 154 of those are people with the most significant disabilities. And that's important because they have two or more barriers to functions, and they tend to need long-term services that are more in-depth.
And are we able to serve everybody that needs those services? I mean, are we able to meet the demand with this amount of money?
Yes, thank you. In fact, we're trying to grow the program at this point. So we have some initiatives to try to bring more students into the program. And Ms. Wales could certainly talk about some of the outreach that they're doing in schools, but especially the pre-vocational part of the program. We are growing and we see those numbers. This year we're on target to have 56 individuals in that program. That part of the program started in fiscal year 14 with 17.
And what schools are the students located at?
Good morning. All schools with the exception right now of Hug, McQueen, and Wooster. Hug and McQueen and Wooster have had students who have been in that program previously, but it really depends on whether or not they're eligible for voc rehab. So some of the students who've been eligible previously have actually come over into the voice program following graduation. But like Ms. Hendren said, we're doing some exceptional outreach right now, working specifically with those populations in our strategies classrooms who deal with students who have significant needs in the area of autism, and also in our comprehensive life skills program in dealing with individuals who are more significantly impacted, who might have an intellectual disability.
As I said, it's a tremendous program. Do other school districts use this program that you're aware of?
Yes, thank you. We have a third-party cooperative arrangement with Clark County School District as well. So currently with 2 school districts, and then we have 4 third-party cooperative arrangements within the system of higher education. We've had discussions with other schools and have some interest. Sometimes we have to weigh the size in order to fund a program like this, but certainly voc rehab provides services statewide in all the schools statewide.
I don't have anything else, just I want to thank Washoe County School District for taking advantage of this, and then to hear that number of students that are the beneficiaries of that and are getting placed, I think it's tremendous. Madam Secretary, I know you're always interested in these issues.
Thank you, Governor. Yes, you brought up some really good questions, and mine would have been asking about Clark County and how they're involved. I just was curious as to how many schools are involved and if the community college is involved with this as well. You said higher ed, so I was hoping that the community college was part of it. But I do thank you so much for what you do. But if you could just tell me a little bit about Clark, how many high schools are involved, and if you work with any of the other community groups down there that also assist with people with disabilities.
Okay, thank you. So we have our deputy administrator in the south, Janice John, who can talk to that third-party cooperative with Clark County School District. And sorry, what was the other part of your question as far as working with colleges?
Right, the community college, because I know they have also a very big part in the rehabilitation and some of the other state agencies. So I just wondered what that link was for you with the community college.
Okay, so yes, I see Janice at the table. With your indulgence, Janice John, Deputy Administrator.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
With the JEEP program, which is with Clark County School District, we actually are working with 8 high schools, and we have a total of 40 students in those 8 schools that are working on a vocational program.
Was that,
And they
I'm sorry,
actually-
was that 40?
40 students.
Okay, thank
yes.
you, thank you.
And we're actually trying to grow the program as well. Each year we've been increasing two new high schools. And so we've really had some nice success. And this is our 3rd year we'll be going into this program, to the JEEP program. And the collaboration with the colleges, we're working with TMCC and up north and WNC. And in the south we have UNLV and also CSN. And so there's a nice progression. Some of our students are actually going from the high school program into the colleges. So we have that link. And then we're also just working with students that perhaps are not in the JEEP or the voice program, and they'll be going over to the colleges. And the college programs offer a great support, a safety net for our students that sometimes need a little bit more support to complete their college diploma or certificate programs that they might be involved in.
Well, if it would be all right, I would really love to have a tour. Again, it's been a long time, but I'd like to see the progress that you've made. And so if we could arrange something while I'm in the South, I'd really appreciate it. But thank you again for what you're doing, because this is a really unique program, and I know that the families are very grateful. So thank you, Governor.
Any other questions? Yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Yeah, please.
I'm sorry, yes, Governor, and committee, with your indulgence, we do have one student with disability here today that's just become employed, and he would love to say a few words if you're interested.
Love to hear from you.
Okay,
Thank
Cody.
you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Cody Cushman, and
Yeah, you're doing fine.
and the boys helped me out pretty well. They got me a job, and I wasn't shy at all. And Diane Kreitz helped me out, and Wayne helped me out, gave me jobs, what kind of job I like to have, and it worked me out pretty well.
What kind of work are you doing?
What kind of work I'm doing? I work in the free world, and I do a lot of sweeping, a lot of hay, and do a lot of bagging with customers, and I do a lot of work there, and I get really tired. I get home.
You work hard.
That's really true. Yeah.
You work hard, don't you?
Yep, I do.
Yeah.
Cody, how much are you making an hour?
How much I'm getting an hour? $9. All
right.
Which is more than the minimum wage, which is super.
Yeah, more.
Well, Cody, I just want to tell you I'm very proud of you. I'm very proud of you, and you're very brave to be here today, and I know you're doing a great job. And when I was a kid, I used to raise sheep, and I would come to the feed shop.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Dang.
And I'd get my hay, and I'd get my grain, and all those things.
Wow. That's a lot of work for you.
Yeah. Well, I cleaned a few sheep pens too. So,
Oh, yeah.
Well, Cody, I don't know, Madam Secretary, Mr. Attorney General, if you have any questions or comments.
All right.
Cody, just want to thank you again for being here. It really is refreshing just to talk to an individual that's actually gone through the program and working. So congratulations, and thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Congratulations, Cody.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Yes, I do.
Well, I still have a lot of dogs and animals, so maybe I'll come see you. Do you sell tortoise food
What?
for
What?
turtles?
No, not really.
No.
I sell like rabbit food.
Okay.
And dog food and chickens, turkeys. But those are big birds, and they come in adults. I take care of the baby chicks, feed them, I water them, and they get really bigger, and I feed them. And they say, "Whoa, this big's getting bird. They're getting big." So holy smokes, what am I gonna do?
Well, that's because you're doing such a great job.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And I watch them getting bigger. I said, "Wow, guys are getting big."
Well, thank you very much for being here today, and again, I'm really proud of you.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Cody, you made my day. Board members, any questions on contracts 1 through 68 in agenda item number 10? Attorney General has moved for approval of contracts 1 through 68 in agenda item 10. Is there a second?
There is a happy second.
Yeah. Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item number 11, master service agreements. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. There are 8 master service agreements in agenda item number 11 for approval by the board this morning, and no additional information has been requested by any of the members.
Okay, any questions from board members?
No, Governor. Move to approve.
Attorney General has moved to approve the master service agreements presented in agenda item number 11. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 3-0. We'll move on to agenda item 12, information item, clerk of the board contracts. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. There were 43 contracts under the $50,000 threshold approved by the clerk between March 21st and April 17th of 2017. This item is informational only, and no additional information was requested by any of the members.
Board members, any questions? None? All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 13, which are additional informational contracts. Mr. Wells?
Thank you, Governor. The staff has finally gone through all of the outstanding contracts in our system and identified what are hopefully the last of the contracts.
You told us that last
I know,
month.
and I've told my staff, I keep saying this, and I'm going to have to mean it at one of these meetings. The 9 of the contracts are contracts which were signed but were not approved in the system. So we have taken some steps to ensure that those contracts are actually approved in the system going forward. The last one was a programming error in which the contract was an action item and then it was revised to be an information item, and somehow the system kicked it out altogether. So we have that as a programming fix coming forward. So again, hopefully these are the last of them. And again, this item is informational and no additional information was requested by any of the members.
Okay, any questions, board members? Okay, there are none. We'll move to agenda item number 14, which is another informational item. Mr. Wells.
Thank you, Governor. There are 2 information reports in agenda item 14 relating to this Complete Streets program. The first is the report from the Department of Motor Vehicles on the voluntary contributions collected for the period of January 1st through March 31st of 2017. During the quarter, the department collected a little over $84,000, slightly higher than the $77,000 collected in the same period last year and the $70,800 collected in the last quarter. Of that amount, 77.5% was from Clark County, 16.5% from Washoe County, and 3% each from Carson City and Douglas County, who started participating in late 2016. After deducting the 1% to administer the collection and distribution of the contributions, the department distributed $83,543 to the 4 counties, with about $64,700 going to Clark County, $13,800 to Washoe County, $2,700 to Carson City, and $2,300 to Douglas County. Approximately 14.5% of those registering a vehicle during the quarter contributed to the program, ranging from 11.8% in Douglas County to 15.1% in Clark County, and that is up from about 13.5% in the same quarter last year, as well as the last quarter. The second report is one on the use of the Complete Streets funds by the 4 recipient counties. The Carson City is accumulating funds for future Complete Streets project after using them for downtown corridor improvements. Washoe County is planning to use them for an Audie Wells multimodal improvement, and that is scheduled to occur in state fiscal year 19. Douglas County is accumulating the funds to partially pay for bike lanes and disability features on the Tillman Lane reconstruction project. And Clark County allocated their 2016 funds to the city of Henderson for bike lane improvements that are expected to be complete in FY18, and to the city of Mesquite for rapid flashing beacons that are expected to be installed by the end of the calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. Any questions? I mean, the only comment is it's really heartening to see those dollars go directly to projects on the ground for the bike lanes and the ADA improvements. And appreciate the generosity of people who make those volunteer contributions to do those projects. All right, then, let's move to agenda item number 15, which is Department of Public Safety Emergency Management Disaster Relief Account request.
Item 15 is a notification from the Division of Emergency Management of intent to request allocations from the disaster relief account pursuant to NRS 353.2755. Pursuant to statute, state agencies and local governments can request a grant or a loan through the Division of Emergency Management from the disaster relief account if, because of the disaster, the local government is unable to pay for an expense from available funds. Applicants must submit their intention to apply not later than 60 days after the governor or the governing body of a local government determines that an event constitutes a disaster. The division is then required to notify both the Board of Examiners as well as the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau of that intent. Then within 18 months of the determination that an event constitutes a disaster, the state agency or the local government must submit their final requests to the Division of Emergency Management and to the Department of Taxation, including whether the request is for a loan or a grant and the final amount of that request. The Division of Emergency Management and the Department of Taxation are required to review the requests and submit reports to the Board of Examiners, who then make a recommendation to the Interim Finance Committee on the proposed amount and the determination of whether it is a grant or a loan. So this notification is just the first step in this process, and then within the next 18 months, the applications for either loans or grants from the disaster relief account will come back to the board for approval and recommendation to the Interim Finance Committee. This particular notification is for the January flood event that was in northwestern Nevada, and we already know that there are going to be 2 additional notifications coming probably to the June meeting for the February flood event, and then for some of the spring thaw that we are experiencing.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. And all the affected entities or local governments are aware of this procedure. I don't want to see anybody left out because they didn't know that this was the process.
I believe so. I believe that the Division of Emergency Management has held several meetings to kind of discuss the processes, because there's the process for the disaster relief account, and then the process for the Federal Emergency Management Agency funding is separate. So there has been some confusion between the 2 processes. So there has been a lot of discussion between the division as well as the governments on the different processes for each.
And do you have an estimate of the amount that likely will be requested?
I believe that the number I've seen so far from the January flood events is in the neighborhood of 1.6 million.
There's a lot more coming. And again, I've had the unfortunate opportunity to be able to be out there and see all these affected areas. And, we've been lucky because we have done a lot of mitigation in terms of preventing what could have been even worse damage. And, I see the folks out at NDOT, and we had our meeting yesterday, and we've got close to $16 million that we have spent for emergency road projects from NDOT alone. But it was, I don't know if I have the adjectives, the extraordinary work that was done to get those contractors and the people at NDOT to get that work done. And then I can go to the National Guard out in Lemon Valley and the Division of Forestry and putting their crews out there. It really has been a monumental effort to try to mitigate this. And everybody knows that there's still a lot of water that's going to come down the mountain. And so tomorrow in Churchill County, they're going to be opening up a channel that is going to be diverting hundreds of thousands of gallons of water, or acre feet of water. What I've been told is for Lahontan, they're going to have to literally empty it out twice in order to accommodate the amount of water that is coming down there. So they have built a channel that will divert a massive amount of water to the Carson Sink and literally dumping the water in the desert, which has never happened before. And had that not been done, you'd probably have 2 to 3 feet of water in downtown Fallon. So as I said, that's happening at noon tomorrow, and there's literally a community celebration tomorrow to really laud the efforts of the mayor and the Churchill County commissioners and everybody that was involved in getting that done. And that'll be part of these requests that are coming from Churchill, that they were able to make that happen. But it really has been an amazing sight to see an effort in terms of the cooperation between the feds, state government, local governments, and just people, everyday people who are out there trying to save their homes, save their businesses. And it's really quite remarkable and makes me proud as a governor to see what I like to call the Nevada family come together and get this done to really prevent what could have been Katrina-style flooding. Just hellacious flooding. And so there's just been a lot of effort in terms of preparing for what we're probably going to be seeing through July with the amount of water that's going to be coming down from the Sierras. Is this an action item, Mr. Wells, or?
This is not an action
Okay.
item. The action item will come when the actual applications come back within 18 months from now.
All right, thank you. Board members, any questions with regard to agenda item 15? Okay. All right, let's move to agenda item 16, public comment. Is there any member of the public in Carson City that would like to provide public comment to the board? I hear and see none. Anyone from Las Vegas?
No, Governor.
An invisible person just talked, but no public comment from Las Vegas. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
The Attorney General has moved. Is there a second? Second by the Secretary of State. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes 3-0. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.